hit him after the buzzer. And then a gesture.
That is it! Still undisputed!
With all the trash talk, all this.
In a sport full of brutality, not everyone can be as kind as Wonderboy Thompson or as respectful as Lyoto Machida. The MMA stage has witnessed everything from spitting and biting opponents to knocking out referees. It's time to remember the most disrespectful fighters in MMA history. And if you guys enjoy this video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment for us as we push to create great MMA content. Let's do this. Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz is the unsung hero of flipping people off. Sure, his big brother Nick may take the spotlight in the Diaz family, being the bigger star and the better fighter, but when it comes to giving the bird, Nate is the true maestro. Nate's middle finger prowess is like a work of art. It's not just about the technique, it's about the versatility. Whether it's day or night, rain or shine, if someone rubs Nate the wrong way, you can bet he's flashing that iconic finger. During his bout with Benson Henderson, where most would focus on the actual fight, Nate showcased his dedication to his craft. Despite the one-sided beatdown of the match, he didn't let the pursuit of victory overshadow his sportsmanship. Surprisingly, Nate's low points aren't always finger-related. Take his encounter with Donald Cerrone, known for being one of the most genuine figures in the sport. Before their fight, Nate refused to shake Cerrone's hand, setting the tone for a Diaz-style press conference where he even knocked off Cerrone's trademark cowboy hat during the stare-down. And just for good measure, he threw in a middle finger salute during the actual fight. In the Diaz hierarchy, Nate might be second to Nick in some aspects, but when it comes to flipping the bird, he is the undisputed champion. Rampage Jackson. Disrespect comes in many shapes and forms, and in the case of Rampage Jackson, it seems to be fueled by pure ignorance. Okay, now let's be clear about Rampage. He's a charismatic and a funny guy. It's unlikely that he's intentionally out to offend anyone except maybe his longtime nemesis Rashad Evans. However, despite his charm, there's a crucial thing Rampage seems to miss: the unwritten rule of boundaries that most people instinctively recognize and avoid. There's this imaginary line that people know not to cross, a line they may flirt with, but always come back from. Well, try telling that to Rampage. This has sometimes led to cringe-worthy moments, including interviews that took a turn for the awkward with inappropriate flirting and advances. Perhaps one of the more egregious examples was during The Ultimate Fighter, Heavyweights, when Rampage mercilessly mocked contestant Daryl Schoonover, which resulted in Schoonover spiraling into alcoholism on the show, a far cry from what one would expect from a coach. Sure, a bit of horseplay is fine, but pushing someone to the point of being discharged from the army due to high blood pressure and being nicknamed Titties is a brand of humor only Rampage seems to appreciate. Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor has left an indelible mark not only for his skills, but also for a series of headline-grabbing controversies. From snatching Jose Aldo's hat to making extreme threats against his opponents, McGregor has secured his place in the annals of notoriety. In one of his most talked about moments, McGregor's clash with Nate Diaz at the UFC 202 pre-fight press conference turned chaotic, resulting in a water bottle brawl and an unprecedented end to the event. Even during his recovery from a leg break in 2021, McGregor found himself in the spotlight, this time engaging in a public altercation with rapper Machine Gun Kelly at the MTV Video Music Awards. McGregor's behavior took a dark turn after his UFC 296 loss when he made threatening remarks towards Dustin Poirier and his family, drawing widespread criticism. A tweet targeting Poirier's daughter only added fuel to the fire. Among McGregor's most reprehensible moments was a deleted tweet mocking the death of Aldumanap Nurmagomedov, deepening his feud with Khabib. The lead-up to UFC 223 saw McGregor's personal feud with Khabib escalate dramatically, culminating in a bus attack during media day. This incident resulted in injuries to fighters and legal consequences for McGregor. Perhaps one of the most severe criticisms came after McGregor's bar incident in Dublin, where he punched an older man, causing public outrage. Despite an apology, McGregor's decision to buy the pub and ban the victim from drinking there solidified a legacy marked by both athletic prowess and controversial behavior. Chael Sonnen. Sonnen is often hailed as one of the most intellectual and good-hearted figures. But when the bad guy shifts into promotion mode, he becomes a walking soundbite, sparing no one when it comes to hyping up pay-per-view sales. He's fantastic when he's on his best behavior, but when he's not, he's downright problematic. His lowest points? Well, it all seems to be traced back to his rivalry with Anderson Silva. Sonnen didn't just criticize the longtime champ, he verbally dismantled him, targeting everything from his skills to his training partners. He even made controversial comments about patting Silva's wife on the butt, which he later criticized ESPN's Dan Lebitard for discussing, despite its authenticity. But Sonnen's verbal onslaughts weren't reserved for Silva alone. He claimed to have witnessed the Nogueira brothers feeding a carrot to a bus, told Vitor Belfort to pick up his luggage from his hotel room, and compared Brazil to a group of homeless kids playing in the mud. Well, it's clear that Sonnen's inflammatory statements are part of his persona, not the man himself. One can't help but wonder if, in retrospect, the intelligent Sonnen regrets some of his hyped-up comments. Colby Covington. Colby Covington, self-proclaimed UFC supervillain, is notorious for his bold trash-talking. After beating Demian Maia in 2017, he dissed Brazil, calling it a dump and the crowd filthy animals. Covington claims this act saved his career after the UFC threatened to cut him. Embracing his villain persona, he used WWE wrestler Kurt Angle's theme for his entrance in a 2019 fight, accompanied by Trump's sons. Post-win against Robbie Lawler, he referenced Matt Hughes' accident, refusing to apologize despite criticism. Trash talk continued before the Kamaru-Usman fight at UFC 245, with insensitive remarks about Usman's coach who passed away. In 2021, he sparked controversy by insinuating a past relationship with Polyana Viana. Before UFC 296, Covington's heated exchange with Leon Edwards included a disrespectful comment about Edwards' late father, causing widespread backlash even from Dana White, who criticized the low blow and questioned Covington's performance. Shinya Aoki. Shinya Aoki is a bit of a puzzle because his actions in the ring are the exact opposite of what you'd expect by looking at him. I mean, the guy appears to be the quiet kid you used to copy homework from in middle school. Then he steps into the ring and everything changes instantly. Aoki has made a name for himself as a submissions expert throughout his successful career. However, he also holds the title for perhaps the worst sportsmanship in MMA history. Take his fight against Mizuto Hirota at Dynamite 2009, for instance. Aoki, sporting his usual questionable pants, acted like a completely wild man. After gruesomely snapping Hirota's arm, Aoki stood up and took a note from the Nate Diaz handbook, but he didn't stop there. For reasons only known to a few, Aoki proceeded to give the finger to the crowd. You know, the people who contribute to his income, helping him afford those eye-catching leggings he seems to love. Then he pointed and laughed at Hirota, who was in obvious pain on the mat. It was a tornado of bad sportsmanship that's not likely to be replicated anytime soon. Michael Bisping. Maybe it's his cheeky British accent, but regardless of the reason, Michael Bisping has faced a fair share of undeserved criticism from fans throughout his career. On the surface, it's easy to dislike Bisping. He's a talkative guy with model looks who, standing next to Dan Henderson's quintessential American demeanor on The Ultimate Fighter, came off as the stereotypical Brit. However, over the past few years, Bisping has proven himself thoughtful, intelligent, and genuinely likable. Of course, he's had his moments of indiscretion. There was that time he declared himself the unofficial Strikeforce champion, and the instance where he compared Joseph Benavidez to a 10-year-old girl. And then there's this memorable incident. Spitting on someone after knocking them out is the kind of thing that sticks with you forever. No matter how charming Bisping may seem in interviews or how many questionable techno songs he produces, he'll always be remembered as the guy who spit at Jorge Rivera's cornerman. Nick Diaz. People have tirelessly attempted to decipher the enigma that is Nick Diaz, and honestly, it's pretty amusing. Trying to make sense of the swirling dark abyss that Diaz calls his brain is like embarking on a journey into the unknown. A prime example is the UFC 158 conference call, which was supposed to be a straightforward event but morphed into a 40-minute, meandering monologue reflecting Diaz's distorted worldview. One moment, Diaz is expressing profound respect for Georges St-Pierre. The next, he's hurling expletives at him. He seems to strive for a contemplative and sensitive image, only to pivot and dismiss current MMA as nonsense shortly thereafter. It's as if there's a glimmer of common sense trying to break free in his head, but his deep-seated psychosis won't allow it. In simple terms, Diaz is a fascinating individual. When he speaks, very little of it makes logical sense, yet it's undeniably entertaining. Some folks might be growing tired of his antics, and eventually this roller coaster ride we're on with him will come to an end. But for now, I'm just embracing the madness that is Nick Diaz, letting it wash over me one day at a time. As for his most disrespectful moments, well, take your pick, any of it, all of it. A quick Google search will give you a glimpse into what we're talking about. Gilbert Yvel. Describing Gilbert Yvel is like taking Shinya Aoki's 30-second burst of disrespect and stretching it over nearly a decade. It's not an exaggeration to say that Yvel might be one of the least admirable individuals to step into the combat sports arena. His Wikipedia page dedicates a significant chunk to his questionable behavior, clearly depicting some dark times. Let's rewind to 1998, when he bit Karimula Barkalev. Fast forward a few years, and he got disqualified for dangerously clawing at Don Frye's eyes. However, the peak of Yvel's questionable actions was in 2004, when he knocked down a referee and proceeded to kick him while he was down. Considering everything, it seems like Yvel has been in an uncontrolled berserk rage since 1997. And do you guys agree with our selections? If you enjoyed the video, share your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button, and subscribe to keep the excitement going in the octagon.